At the edge of downtown Fort Worth, a massive 8-story warehouse stands silent along West Lancaster Avenue. Its cream-colored brick facade, adorned with faint hints of Art Deco patterns, looms over the street, a haunting reminder of another era. This is the Texas and Pacific Warehouse, a sleeping giant that has sat vacant for decades. Broken windows and darkened doorways mark what was once a bustling hub for commerce. Yet despite its ghostly quiet today, this hulking building was born from bold ambition and remains an icon of Fort Worth's past, present, and hoped-for future. In the early 1930s, Fort Worth was a city on the rise, and the Texas and Pacific Railway Company made a grand investment in that growth. To address the city's booming population and business needs, T&P poured $13 million into a 3-building complex that would anchor the city's transportation corridor. This development included a glamorous 13-story passenger terminal, a sprawling outbound freight facility, and an enormous inbound freight warehouse, the very building that survives today. Front Street, the old rail thoroughfare, was even renamed Lancaster Avenue in honor of T&P's president, John Lancaster, to commemorate the project. When the Texas and Pacific Warehouse opened in 1931, it was hailed as a symbol of progress. The renowned Fort Worth architect Wyatt C. Hedrick, with associate Herman P. Keppy, designed the complex, and contractor P. O'Brien Montgomery of Dallas built it between 1929 and 1931. Its construction provided hundreds of jobs at the height of the Great Depression, softening the blow of hard times with much-needed paychecks. In short, the warehouse and its sister buildings embodied hope for Fort Worth's future. As part of the Texas and Pacific Railroad empire, the warehouse played a critical historical role in the city. It was built as an inbound freight terminal, a place where goods arriving by rail would be unloaded and distributed throughout Fort Worth and beyond. Located just a block from the grand T&P passenger station, the warehouse completed a hub that could move both people and mountains of goods. In its heyday, trains rumbled up to the warehouse's rail docks, while fleets of trucks loaded fresh produce, dry goods, and merchandise from its bays. Fort Worth's Chamber of Commerce had envisioned such infrastructure during a late 1920s civic improvement plan, and the T&P warehouse delivered. It helped solidify the city as a major transportation and logistics center at a time when rail was king. The building was not just a storehouse, it was a centerpiece of economic activity. For roughly 2 decades, the Texas and Pacific Warehouse thrived as a key junction in the flow of commerce through North Texas. In the 1940s, the Texas and Pacific Warehouse stands in its prime, an Art Deco giant built for the age of rail. Even amid its utilitarian purpose, the T&P warehouse was architecturally striking. It was designed in the zigzag modern style, a branch of Art Deco known for bold geometric ornamentation, to match its upscale passenger depot counterpart. In fact, the warehouse was a muted, simplified version of the ornate terminal, scaled down in decoration, but still rich in style. The building rises 8 stories and stretches an astonishing 600 feet long by 100 feet wide, consuming 3 city blocks in length. That monumental scale, about 580,000 square feet of floor space, made it one of the largest structures in Fort Worth, a true Goliath of industry. Its exterior was clad in buff-colored brick, trimmed with limestone and bands of blue tile, giving the massive walls a touch of elegance. The facade featured intricate Art Deco details. Woven into its brickwork were zigzags, chevrons, stepped pyramid shapes, and even Native American-inspired motifs, all typical of 1930s modern design. Each end of the long warehouse is anchored by a projecting bay topped with an octagonal tower, and additional smaller towers punctuate the roofline mid-span. These tower forms, along with decorative brick patterns and tiled panels, echoed the look of the neighboring T&P passenger station, visually uniting the complex. In the eyes of observers then and now, the warehouse is a very rare architectural specimen, perhaps the finest Art Deco industrial building in Texas. Yet, for all its style, the warehouse was fundamentally a working building, and an ingenious one at that. Inside, it was designed to efficiently handle perishable and bulk goods. The first floor included facilities for the refrigeration of produce and other perishables, while upper floors provided vast expanses of storage for dry goods. There were also offices and sales showrooms tucked within, so that wholesalers and distributors could do business on site, managing inventory and meeting clients under the same roof. In essence, the T&P warehouse was a one-stop hub where a company could unload freight from a train, store it, and sell it all in the same building. Its heavy concrete frame and industrial elevators bore the weight of tons of cargo, and its design enabled a smooth flow of goods from railcar to warehouse to delivery truck. This logistical prowess, combined with architectural beauty, made the warehouse both an economic engine and a civic landmark. In the 1930s and 1940s, it stood as a proud emblem of Fort Worth's status as a railroad crossroads and a modern city unafraid to invest in grand infrastructure. The bustling life of the Texas and Pacific warehouse was not to last. The post-World War II era brought sweeping changes to American transportation. By the 1950s, the golden age of railroads was waning. Air travel had captured the public for long-distance journeys, and an expanding network of highways and trucking routes took over freight delivery. Fort Worth's magnificent rail complex slowly became a relic. When passenger and freight traffic declined, the T&P facilities saw less and less use. Finally, around the late 1950s, the company shut down the warehouse and its neighboring terminals. The majestic passenger station closed its doors. It would later be resurrected as a condo and commuter rail hub decades on, and the outbound freight warehouse was eventually demolished. The great inbound warehouse, our 8-story giant, was left in limbo, its purpose suddenly gone. For the next several decades, the Texas and Pacific warehouse stood essentially empty, slipping into dereliction without regular maintenance or activity. Time and the elements began to take a toll on the structure. Water crept in through leaky roofs and broken windows, saturating the building's bones. Neglect and lack of maintenance left the concrete and steel frame vulnerable, as rainwater pooled and froze season after season. The once bustling loading bays became gateways for trespassers. The idle warehouse was accessible to vandals and urban explorers who left graffiti on its walls. By the 2000s, onlookers could spot a tree growing from the roof of the warehouse, nature staking a claim amid the cracked tar and rubble. Inside, the basement filled with stagnant water, and pieces of decorative terracotta and brick detailing occasionally crumbled to the ground below. What had been Fort Worth's pride was now its most notorious shell, a building famed as much for its decay as for its history. Still, the warehouse's significance was never forgotten. It was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1978, recognizing its importance and offering some protection. The city of Fort Worth designated it a highly significant endangered landmark in 1995, an official acknowledgement that this Art Deco treasure was at risk. Local preservation groups sounded the alarm year after year. The warehouse appeared on historic Fort Worth's most endangered places list at least 8 times in the last few decades, and Preservation Texas named it one of the state's most endangered places in 2015. Yet, through all the studies and proclamations, the building remained in limbo. City code inspectors even nearly condemned the structure in 2017, after finding persistent safety issues like those still seen today. A special tax incentive had once been in place to encourage rehabilitation, but the city withdrew that benefit in 2019 due to a lack of progress by the owner. Year after year, the Texas and Pacific warehouse sat awaiting a savior, even as plans and promises sputtered out. Frustration in the community continued to mount. The property was purchased in 1998 by an investor, Cleopatra Investments, headed by owner Ola Assem, who over the years floated big redevelopment plans that never materialized. Meanwhile, the surrounding Lancaster corridor has been coming back to life. New parks, a major Texas A&M University campus, expansions to the convention center, and the nearby Omni Hotel, all pouring investment into the south end of downtown. In the midst of this revival stands the hulking T&P warehouse, unchanged. Local leaders have begun calling it an opportunity lost for years, decades really, a key piece of downtown that should be fueling growth, but instead is holding it back. Indeed, the warehouse's vacant shell currently acts like a physical and symbolic barrier between the booming South Main district and the heart of downtown. After more than 25 years of hoping and waiting for the warehouse to awaken, the city and preservationists have reached a turning point. Doing nothing is no longer an option. In spring 2023, Fort Worth officials took action into their own hands. The city commissioned a comprehensive structural inspection of the warehouse, the first such evaluation in the building's modern memory. Engineers found that, despite its advanced decay, the old structure is not in immediate danger of collapse. However, they did warn of damaging effects in the future if certain structural issues aren't addressed, recommending more than $2 million in critical repairs within the next 1 to 3 years. This development galvanized public officials and advocacy groups. In mid-2023, Downtown Fort Worth, Inc., the nonprofit champion for downtown development, passed a resolution urging the city to use every regulatory, preservation, or administrative tool available to spur the warehouse's revival. After years of missed deadlines and false starts, they declared the building's continued deterioration had become cause for great concern. The message was clear. The time had come to either rehabilitate the T&P warehouse or find someone who will. Fort Worth's Economic Development Department began pressing the owner to submit a concrete repair and redevelopment plan, or potentially face legal enforcement. The goal of all these efforts is unequivocal: save this landmark before it deteriorates beyond redemption. Today, a new chapter for the Texas and Pacific warehouse finally appears to be on the horizon. In fact, the blueprint for its rebirth has been drawn and ready for years. The owner's development team created an adaptive reuse design as far back as the mid-2000s, and by 2009, they had secured full approvals from the city, the Texas Historical Commission, and even the National Park Service hear a massive renovation project. The vision is to transform the derelict warehouse into a vibrant or mixed-use complex while honoring its historic character. According to plans on file, the building would house hundreds of residential units, loft apartments, and possibly a hotel on its eastern end, with shops, restaurants, or offices on the ground floor to bring public life back into the space. To adapt the warehouse for modern use, the design calls for creative engineering. The tiny original windows would be enlarged, and entirely new window openings would be added on certain walls to flood the once gloomy interiors with light. Designers even secured approval to carve a grand motor and pedestrian plaza straight through the center of the first floor. Essentially, an open-air passage and courtyard that would invite people into the complex from Lancaster Avenue. Additional new construction is envisioned around the warehouse, including parking facilities and possibly new residential structures on the 5-acre site to support the development's needs. In renderings, the old loading bays could become trendy storefronts, and the roof, once just a place for machinery, could host penthouse units and amenities for residents. It's an ambitious plan, fitting for a building of such magnitude. Yet the journey from paper to reality has been long and fraught with delays. The owner cites a range of hurdles: coordination with public projects, like the relocation of an I-30 freeway overpass that once loomed in front of the building, and the new Lamar Hemphill Street connector that had to be engineered alongside the site, slowed things down for years. Economic downturns and the complexity of financing such a large adaptive reuse also played a part. Despite these challenges, there are signs of progress. In late 2022, the owner announced that development efforts had restarted and expressed hope that construction on the warehouse would finally begin within months. City leaders have offered incentives and technical support, including historic preservation tax credits and grants to anyone who will step up to restore the building. There is even talk that if the current owner cannot get the job done, the property could be sold to a more experienced developer or a partnership that specializes in resurrecting historic buildings. The pressure is on, but so is the optimism. After all, everyone is curious to see this sleeping giant awaken. As we stand in the present day, the Texas and Pacific Warehouse teeters between dereliction and revival. Its sturdy Art Deco walls have withstood nearly a century and still hold the aura of Fort Worth's past. Local preservationists and storytellers alike often imagine the day when those boarded-up windows will glow with light again, and the halls will ring with activity. The stakes are high. Restoring this behemoth is no small feat, but the payoff could be immense. A renewed T&P warehouse would not only save an irreplaceable piece of architecture, it would reconnect a part of the city that has been disconnected for generations and honor the legacy of the railroad era that built Fort Worth. As one city official noted, the Art Deco architecture is some of the finest you would see in Fort Worth and the Southwest. Especially at that scale, it deserves to be seen and used, not left to crumble. There is a sense in the community that the warehouse's story is unfinished. With concerted effort, what began as a beacon of progress in 1931 might yet become a beacon once more. The building that helped shape Fort Worth's future in the last century could play that role again. A future where this grand old warehouse is alive, thriving, and telling a new Fort Worth story to generations to come.